Hey guys, Dr. Prometheus here, and this will be a small cut of our live stream that we did for our Bills offseason. We took the first Super Bowl win in franchise history. The Bills are now 1-4. Drew Brees and company really brought that to us. And we defeated the Bears 17-3 behind some great defense by one of our rookies. And then also some great offense by one of our rookies, both on defense, Hoskins, and on offense, Shields. So the rookies came up, played some good ball, and we were able to get the Super Bowl ring. So going more into the offseason, in the re-sign period, I wasn't really high on a lot of things, and we kind of figured Drew Brees would retire, and in fact, he did. So Josh Allen will take the reins of this Bills offense once again after a year behind Brees. And it's going to be a wild ride with him. Over on defense, this is how it looks right now. We did give the upgrade to Von Hoskins because he was a Super Bowl MVP. So we did give him that superstar upgrade. If he was already a superstar because he got it in the season, I wouldn't have manually done that. But I believe he should have got it there. Going for the rest of retirements, and you see Phillip Rivers retires, but he retires before the Los Angeles Chargers move to Houston and become the Houston Voyagers. So we'll see their uniforms later on after the draft, but great relocation there. Scrolling down, Craig Robertson, Brandon Carr, Marshall Yanda, Kyle Love, and then Edelman, Cannon, and Brady retire. So the Patriots have to look for a new quarterback going into the future. Glennie Walker, Raymond Foster, Clay Matthews, Mike Iupati, Nick Bellore, Deshaun Jackson, Sean Lee, Adam Vinatieri, and Terrell Suggs, another big one out there, and then Malcolm Smith. So a lot of big retirements this season, especially there. And really, when we were looking at our players that we wanted to resign, Brees would have been a big one, but at this point, I think we're going to move on with a lot of players going forward, and I did decide that. Schillinger, we're going to move on from. Damari Scott was really a reserve. The only real starter that we're going to actually think about it was we're going to move on for Ty Montgomery, and we're going to move on from Trent Murphy. So we do have to do the defensive line, but looking at the top 100 of free agents, really it was all about the running back and the defensive positions at corner and left outside linebacker. Two running backs with Hunt and Kamara, which is a position I really wanted to upgrade from. Humphrey, you had Brooks out there, and then TJ Watt hit the market, and the Patriots put a big bid on him. So I was kind of afraid he would pick there. Njoku, who I'm not really high on our tight end position right now, but it is a secondary need. I want to rebuild the offensive line before we have some issues with at center and left guard, because those guys are getting up there in age. They're 30, they're going to hit the regression bug, and they're not high overall, really, in the middle in the first place. Really going through a lot of names. Ikebum, Houston, Derrick Henry, who the Dolphins have the sole bid for, so we might see him 2 times a year for the next couple of years. And there's not a lot of play outside of some re-signings. We saw a lot of guys trying to re-sign their own players, and that was cool. Going into free agency, the players wanted to test free agency, and the teams were actually making some bids, but Taywan Taylor had that speed against us when we played the Titans, and I really liked him, but overall we need to look for a backup quarterback, and I didn't really like what I saw around, and so later on we'll make a bid, but at this point, looking outside of what other positions we can upgrade, and at halfback there was a lot of good halfbacks out there, but really I want to get younger at the position. Yeldon was pretty good. I think as Montgomery got hurt, we saw flashes of Singletary. So from there, kind of just want to move on and see where those guys go in free agency. For a receiver, I wanted to pick up someone who can really take over some of those return game and is fast. So we're going to make a bid on John Ross, be our first bid of the season. 3-year, $8.2 million. So that is only about a $3.5 million hit for us a year. So not a lot for that contract, but we'll get John Ross if he signs for a 3-year deal and get some speed in the return game. One of the biggest things, though, still thinking about Taywan Taylor. We have Zay Jones, who's going on his last year of his contract coming up here in the next year or so, and upgrading it with Taywan Taylor when he leaves, or just do it now and really see if Bourne would stay. But I do like Bourne, and Zay Jones is going to be 27. Bourne's the same way, and we're younger with McLeod. Wims is 26. That next year we might find a receiver that we actually want in the offseason, and so we may look to actually let Zay Jones walk if the time is right. Who knows at this point? We might sign him and trade him at a later date, kind of like what a lot of teams do with that. So moving on and looking at it, Taylor wanted a $20 million contract. So at that point, that would be a lot of our money. It's about $780 a year, and we need some upgrades elsewhere. For tight end, I liked it, but there was a lot of guys with age up there, so I want to get younger. I did see Adam Shaheen, who we did play against the Bears. It's a cap hit of 2.35 over 3 years, so that's not too bad. And we can use him in a fullback tight end, kind of a hybrid spot. Over at center, we saw a lot there, but again, those guys were 32 plus. Over at right guard, same thing. A lot of guys up in their 30s. At this point, I know there's a lot of offensive line talent from the last episode and the preview, that from there we're going to look for the O-line talent in the draft. But at end, after giving up really Murphy, saw Calais Campbell out here. Only wants a $9.32 million contract for 1 year. He'll likely retire after this, being that he's 35. And really signing him for that 1 year deal and not spending that cap space for multiple deals kind of brought me into that. So we're going to go ahead and give him a contract and see if he ends up signing. We might do a little hybrid stuff depending, that we'll go into later. Saw TJ Watt out here, left outside linebacker, and taking a bit more in-depth looking at what he's getting, and it's going to be close to a $100 million contract over 5 years. And that is a lot of money, and the Patriots are the highest bid there, which kind of concerns me. We'll be playing TJ Watt twice a year. As for investing in some reserve outside linebacker, thought about Tyrus Bowser, but with Calais Campbell we can use and work some hybrid things. So from there, I'm going to draft someone probably, or at least look at what the draft class offers when we go into scouting with some of our combine. Didn't really see anything at the other outside linebacker position. At corner, I like where we're set right now. Just looking where everyone might go, and not a lot of bids for corners. It looks like everyone's going for a couple that are young, so we'll see how this market kind of goes up. But I saw Joe Hayden here. We really don't have a corner or a safety hybrid that could really play some hybrid. So when we pull Hyde up in the box, or if we have another injury like we did this season where both Edmonds and Hoskins are out, and we used Hyde and some hybrid backs up in the box, I want to be able to have a good coverage guy on the back end, and so we do put out something there. And for safety, I wasn't really high on who was here. We could have spent some money to bring in McCourty, but I mean, he's not a big hitter at free safety. He's more of a zone guy, and I want some actual sure tackling, and Joe Hayden is pretty good at that. So coming back to the quarterbacks, we are going to put out a contract to Kirk Cousins, a 1 year, $9.2 million or so with that one. Not a high bid, so likely he'll pick somewhere else to go. But thing is, we need some stability at our backup QB position. We end up giving 8.53 because of our cap space. But here's the regression. Hughes went down 26 points, so he went down about 7 overall, which is not great, and why we're going to do a little hybrid scheme this season between him and Calais Campbell, if Calais Campbell actually does sign. If he doesn't, well, that just makes it a priority of either grabbing someone like Tyrus Bowser or really just going with Jerry Hughes for the next season. Micah Hyde's starting to hit that, so we need to start thinking about strong safety as serious. Mr. Morris at center, we're going to be building this line, so him regressing at 29 is not a shocker. Tyler Croft, the same thing, so we're going to have to think about some tight end. Spain, who's 30 overall, or 30, age is starting to go down, and Yeldon starting to go down at 27, which really makes running back an urgency at this point when it comes to getting younger. And we could trade for someone with some draft picks during the draft or draft someone, but looking at the signings, we do get Joe Hayden, we do get John Ross, and Calais Campbell does sign with us. So the first 3 big ones we wanted to improve our return game, get some pass rush, and really get a lot of these things going, and those are some big signings. So we're looking here, TJ Watt actually did not go to the Patriots, which helps us. But Mitch Trubisky went to the Dolphins, and he's had some pretty good seasons. We did play him last year in the Super Bowl when he was on the Bears, so he's going to get a big contract, $129 over 5 years to go play in Miami. Justin Houston goes to the Bears, so that means Floyd's going to go elsewhere. Let's see where he goes to. I think it ends up being Arizona. Derrick Henry signs with the Dolphins, so we'll see him for the next couple of years. Marcus May back with the Jets. Here's one with Leonard Floyd there. So some big changes there for those guys. When it comes to offensive line, Kalsimi Asamili, I think it is how you pronounce it. I'm bad with names. Ends up going to the Patriots. That's a big signing at guard for them. So, looking at the draft class, Skylar Lindsey is the Heisman Trophy winner. So, we'll have to see where he goes at the quarterback position. Some of those teams up in the top 10. But I'm thinking our first pick at 32 goes to a running back. We got 2 that are big, and looking at their combine grades, you can really see their differences, one being a power back and one being a receiving back, and it's pretty obvious. On the line, looking at these linemen, and we got some good ones at the guard position, but again, looking at the end, if we're going to have to get younger at some positions, and just skimming through, end is really where the talent is. Parker Sapp also had a draft story, but for him, not really high on a run-stopping linebacker. I'm fine with what we have and what we have in reserve. At corner, a lot of first-round corners moving around all over the place. As well as we had an idea of Marcus Burrow, Randall Millard, who looks like just a demon out there at strong safety. George Flores is out there as well. And he's a decent player, but you also have Dominic Tyson, who's 21 years old out of Syracuse, and he looks solid. Some good speed and good vertical. And he could be a player that maybe falls around early third or so, maybe late second. And we have 2 second-round picks, so Dominic Tyson might be one if he falls into the 3rd round at our 2nd overall that we have. Maybe we take a crack at him. So going into the 3rd section of free agency, Kirk Cousins declines our offer. We kind of figured that was going to happen. Adam Shaheen accepts it, and we put a reserve guard on the roster with Jerome Lindsey. but that isn't a big signing there. We just needed some depth to really test on the outside. Actually, that's Landry and not Lindsley. So right now, our backup will be Isaac Hollenbeck. So I think we may end up signing another quarterback. Case Keenum's out there, so we'll take a look at him. But it's 5-year option time. The first one is Josh Allen. We will accept Josh Allen's contract, which will end up being a $23.2 million contract next year. A lot of space for us. But we also have a second one coming up, Tremaine Edmonds. He's going to hover around the $9.5 to $10 million mark, because it ends up being up there. So we're going to have a lot of cap space to go with these players. And at this point, we don't really have anyone waiting in the wings at either position for the future. And really, I'm not moving on from Edmonds and Josh Allen. We'll see how he performs, but at this point, he's the face of the franchise after Drew Brees does leave. So Case Keenum, 6'9" overall, 33 years old, his 9th season. Actually, he's been 9, going into his 10th season. And he's decent to get the job done, just not going to push the ball downfield. But we need a backup as a guy that's accurate. And so we do end up giving him a contract. It's a small one, only $3.7 a year. So not a big one, but we'll see if he accepts that. As for the league signings, looking through, nothing too different, but Xavier Woods, free safety, moving over to the Patriots because of the loss of McCourty, and that's a big signing for them. 2-year, $10 million, $5 million a year or so. That's a big one, as he is only 26 years old. So we'll start the 2020 draft or 2021 draft as the Miami Dolphins have the first overall pick. Now, I was thinking they were going to go quarterback, but the movement in free agency of them getting Mitchell Trubisky allows them some flexibility to look elsewhere, particularly their defense and their pass rush. Also outside in the secondary, they're pretty good. Maybe the linebackers are pretty good, so might look a little bit of offensive line, maybe some receiver. But we'll have to see what they end up picking. In the next picks, though, coming up, we're going to see Keyshawn James come out in an 81 overall. He is actually the #1 true talent in the draft. So they get the best player in the draft at #1. And the biggest shockers are going to be when we come forward is what are the Vikings going to do without a quarterback as Kirk Cousins left? What are the Giants going to do because they don't have anyone up there besides Jones, who's around 67 overall? And what are some of these ones going to go around? Do the Vikings take a receiver, Ishmael Monroe out of Georgia, and they're not going to go quarterback? And this was a big one too. We thought about Aaron Alexander, where he would go. He's going to go to #4 to the Bucks. Actually, to the Cardinals. I'm sorry, Bucks are on the clock, and we're going to see them take Marcus Burrow, safety. He is up there, either 2 or 3 in true talent in the draft class. So some good ones for the first picks. Not a lot of wasting picks. For the Giants, though, they need a quarterback, and we'll see what they have to do at this point. But this draft, at front, I thought it was going to be a little quarterback heavy. And in fact, Skylar Lindsley, the Heisman Trophy winner, goes to the Giants, and, well, the Vikings don't pick anyone. So fast forwarding our pick later, the Patriots don't have a quarterback, but they end up going with Parker Sapp, middle linebacker out of Washington. And that becomes weird as we had the first ever pick for the Houston Voyagers, and they go Dave Abbott. So the Patriots don't get their quarterback. They're going to go, Abbott's going to go to the Voyagers, who lost Phillip Rivers because he retired. But going with our first pick, we haven't seen any of the running backs come off. And this really made me think that, could we trade back for a future pick? And the future picks that we got was only the 7th round from Cleveland. We are the 32 overall pick, so I mean, we got a future ones there with 2nd round, but this is not something, you don't give up a 1st round for a 2nd. Just the importance of having that 5th year option really helps you in the long run as well, to keeping players. But looking at the line, Gabe Burrell's here, but I didn't really like his combine in the long run. At center, just nothing. You have Dean Johnson out here, good combine and pretty much in the top 5 of everything besides the shuttle. And he's a young player at 22, so I'm liking him with run block and pass block, both power ones at the top. And then looking through some of the other pass rush, but a tackle, I wasn't really convinced there. When we have pass rushers, I felt that we could wait. Some people would fall, particularly Brendan Cooper, who will probably go around late 2nd round. We have 2 picks into the 2nd round, so I wasn't too crazy about that because of Bennett Moreland as well. Another power rusher guy will probably go into the 3rd round, so I anticipate a lot of players would be falling around us, but I really wasn't prepared for a runoff when it comes to some of these defensive players in the 2nd round. Particularly just in the 10 picks between ours, this one and ours. Really going to change the dynamic of the team overall, depending on what we pick here. And I was really wanting to switch up the run game, but at the end of the day, I know our offensive line is starting to regress. And the biggest thing that I really invest in is the offensive line early in a lot of franchises. So Dean Johnson will be our pick, 76 overall and a hidden dev. And he will start day 1, top 10 in true talent, so a pretty good pick. And so here we look at the Dolphins picking immediately after us, and they take Trayvon Jones. So the power back out of Notre Dame goes there, and I was thinking, who is really going to get a running back? I didn't see anyone really getting a running back, but lo and behold, the Buccaneers take Gilbert Askew. He's 75 overall out of Northern Illinois. And the biggest confusing part is not only did they get him, they also have Marlon Mack. And last year when we went to try to get and upgrade our running back position last year, well, lo and behold, they signed the guy that we wanted as well, Austin Eckler. So at this point, since they signed Mack, they went younger there. Austin Eckler is really out, at least in my mind. In reality, if this were to occur, would be out. So we might make a trade for Eckler later on in the draft or after the draft. But going at pick 11 of the 2nd round that we do have, looking at some pass rushers, and at this point I felt like since we had both the running backs come off before we can even make a move, that we need to start pulling the trigger on players that I really need and really think are an upgrade to this team. And at this point, we will go with some pass rush. It will be Brendan Cooper, 21 out of North Dakota State. Pretty good combine. Not a lot of strength, but I think at this point, how we use him, he's not going to be a day 1 starter. But we're going to use him in some sub-packages, particularly the rush to quarterback. Maybe on the inside next to Ed Oliver, or we make some changes where he's on the outside and Shaq Lawson kind of shifts to the inside. I haven't really decided that. We'll see how the preseason goes, so we'll see that. Our next pick, since we have 2 picks in the 2nd round, this will be our actual pick at 32. We're going to take Dominic Tyson because we know the regression is starting to hit Hyde. And so he's 21. He was in number 40 in true talent. A developmental player, but a good developmental player that can play some hybrid. But Joe Hayden will take a lot of those hybrid stats out first. So we do have nearly back-to-back picks going with our next third round pick with Dan Schneider. I thought he was pretty good out here, had a pretty good combine. He was falling. This is the third round at this point. And we will take a quarterback. He is 65 overall, which is fine because we're not looking for someone to be a backup since we got Case Keenum. But I think in the future he could be our backup. But we might do some little hybrid too, like some Taysom Hill, like they do out there in New Orleans, currently in real life. We thought about Greg Ivy in the long run as one of our prospects that we might look at, but as you look at him, he's not great, so we ended up not pulling the trigger. I was kind of iffy on them. And Burrell ends up going to the Patriots. Good lineman for them. So our third round pick at 32, this is our actual pick. I was looking at the fact that we wanted to upgrade at tight end. And I really felt that sometimes you'll have some receivers that are heavier and don't really rate well in the long run. But I didn't think Samuels can do that, so just trying to figure out what I want here. We could go offensive line, but not really high on what a lot of the blocking schemes are, a lot of generic. As for pass rushing, I didn't want to pick up Donnell Long this high. I thought he would fall more, like a lot more, in at least the next round. And at tackle, I wasn't really big on a lot of the guys at tackle, which is kind of strange, but we're also pretty young at tackle. The outside pass rush, we could use someone that's kind of waiting in the wings, and that was probably the most logical thing I did see. Robert Truman, if I was looking for a run stopper in as a middle linebacker, I probably would have pulled the trigger on him, but we need some pass rushing. We're going to go with Eddie Lamontague, 23, so a little bit on the other side of what we've been drafting with. We've been drafting a lot of players that are 21 or 22. But finesse moves is up there, block shedding's up there. He's going to be a 69 overall. He is a speed rusher, so he is 48 in true talent, so it's a good pick. He's just going to need some work, and he's going to be in some sub packages to give a break. Now here, I thought, hey, we're not going to make... We got a lot of picks this season. I'm going to give up a few picks. We're going to get our 4th and our 6th and a future 4th, and we're going to acquire Austin Eckler. At this point, I felt this move was great because Eckler immediately upgrades the position. We tried to get him last year to upgrade the position. We couldn't, so we stuck with Yeldon and brought in a little more of a receiver with bringing in Ty Montgomery to really receive out of the backfield. But it's not realistic going with 3 running backs with him, and so we're going to pull the trigger with that one. With Terrell Sellers, he's a little bit on the heavier side for a receiver, around 230. But I thought here, hey, he's not going to be a fast receiver, but he's going to have some decent catching. And I think we can move him over to tight end and get him some work. And I think he would at least be up in the high 60s. So not a lot to say the rest of the 7th round, just kind of picking flyers and not really getting anything. So here's our overall draft class. First overall is Dean Johnson. I'm happy with this one. He's going to immediately start. He's going to be an immediate impact player. Good strength. Good blocking skills. So looking at what other people got, some of the key players. Marcus Burrow, 78 overall. He's a hidden dev trait. He's going to be pretty good for the Bucs. That 91 speed, some good zone coverage. Decent man coverage, hovering around 63 for a strong safety is pretty good. But they got also Gilbert Eskew. He's going to be hidden dev trade as well, receiving back. A little bit on the small side, around 5'8", 5'9". But that speed and agility is great. Kind of reminds me of McCoy hybrid there. For the Dolphins, they did pick up James and Trayvon Jones. So James is going to be good But Trayvon Jones was taken. He's not very fast, and I don't think he's great at catching, so not a lot of loss there. And we kind of move on because I like Eckler much better. Skylar Lindsley is going to be great for the Giants, and I don't know why the Vikings did not pick him. Looking at our division rival, the Jets, not a lot there. The Lions, though, getting Denard Green is a good one, helping their pass rush. And the Patriots, really, getting Tom Rose was not, like, a bad thing. But the fact that they did pass up a better quarterback that the Voyagers actually signed was not great, in my mind. As the Raiders and the Rams get one of the top players out there, the Raiders do their secondary, but that line's going to be great for the Rams. Dave Abbott's only 21 from Georgia. He is going to be a absolute beast. And those uniforms, though, I gotta say, those uniforms are looking pretty fresh. I do like how they look. And, well, Dave Abbott is starting the first year for the Voyagers. So Sellers, moving him over for receivers, a 55 overall. He does have some good hidden dev trait, which will help him upgrade at tight end a lot faster. And I think going up against some of these linebackers and everything, I think he'll be able to pull out some good stuff. He's not great at blocking, so he's not going to be a blocking tight end by any means. But that good acceleration, catching at 70 or 67, spec catch around 72. That's pretty decent for a guy. So we're going to move him to tight end, and he immediately bumps up to a 62 overall. So about 8 or 9 points. So that's pretty good. He's around like a 54, so probably it's around 8. So we'll see how he does in the preseason. Right now, here, this is what our roster looks like, how we're going to start. Shields is our number 1, Jones number 2, Bourne's in the slot. Everyone else is following those guys. Allen will be the quarterback. Eckler will be the starting running back. Shaheen's going to move over to fullback, put a little hybrid spot there. On the lines, Dawkins, Spain, Morse, the rookie Johnson that we brought in, and last year's offensive line rookie with George Woodbury. Over at tight end, we're going to go Croft, Knox, and then Sellers is going to sneak there. Number 3, we're going to get him a lot of preseason snaps and see how he does. Over on defense, secondary is mostly the same. Fuller, White, Apple, everyone after them. Over at free safety, you have Gardner Johnson and Howard, we drafted last year. Hyde, Hayden, Dyson. And then pass rushing, we'll explain that a little bit as we go on. But our base is going to be Lawson, Hoskins, Edmonds, Hughes, with Oliver, Phillips, and Campbell. In our base 3-4, Cooper will not be out there. So what we're going to do is Campbell in our base is going to be inside. But when we go out in our nickel, dime, and our sub packages, Lawson's going to be out wide. Oliver, Cooper are going to be in the middle, and Campbell will be the right edge rusher. Now we might switch just a little bit because Lawson is a heavier guy, can deal with some of those tackles and stuff like that. And Cooper is a speed rusher, so we might flip this, but what we're not having is Campbell or Cooper backing out into coverage. So one of the undrafted free agents we're going to sign is Wesley Clement. Really intriguing guy, 22 years old, with a good dev trait. And we'll see what he can do in the preseason. But there's our preseason roster. Nothing, or actually schedule, nothing big. But the schedule, we're going to start with the Colts and Andrew Luck, Jaguars, Browns, Dolphins, Falcons, Panthers, Titans, Patriots, the new Tom over there, the Bucks, bye week, Texans, Jets, Saints, Dolphins, Patriots, Jets, then Broncos. So not a particularly difficult schedule, but we did have some issues in year 1 beating some easy teams, so we'll see how this goes. But the start of it with the Colts, Jaguars, and Browns, it's going to be somewhat difficult, especially Mayfield and the Browns, and with Andrew Luck. Preseason is going to be Dallas, Jaguars, Seattle, and the Saints. So I will see you guys next time. I'm going to go ahead and cut up the preseason, all 4 games into one episode. You will see that coming up in the next couple of days, probably mid next week actually is realistic, as I still have to play them. But go ahead, comment, like, and don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Later.